All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, who is in Chicago, about to breathe in some White Sox baseball. No better time to do it. But before we get into all of that, and we're going to talk on NL MVP, NL Cy Young a bit later, and also some reactions to the week 2 of preseason. But first, a reminder that with the NFL season quickly approaching, now is the perfect time to get your RotoWorld Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Get ready for your draft and stay one step ahead of your league during the preseason with updated player rankings, profiles, projections, mock drafts, and more. Go to NBCSports.com/draft guide and use code DRAFT2023 to save 20% at checkout. All right, NFL preseason week 2. Pittsburgh Steelers look like the best team in the NFL as they wax the Buffalo Bills. What were your biggest takeaways out of week 2?
Well, boy, it's going to be tough not to get too super Steelers excited until we get much longer into the season, because it's going to take a long time before they really solidify anything, even if they do come out hot. I will say, though, that I think it's fair to be excited by what you saw against Buffalo. Buffalo is one of the deepest teams in the NFL. Their second unit, especially their defensive second unit, is the best set of reserves on paper in the NFL. They have bona fide real deal players out there, and just the fact that the offensive concepts looked kind of fresh, kind of interesting, gives you some sign that there is some life in Matt Canada's playbook. It's kind of the ideal thing I needed to see this weekend, honestly. So yeah, I think fair to be bullish still on Steelers. My personal preference is to attack the Coach of the Year market for Mike Tomlin, because I'm not sure if you've heard, Jay, but Mike Tomlin has never won Coach of the Year. It's never happened in all of the years he's been a coach in this great NFL, and all the years that he's had a winning record. He has never gotten the recognition he's deserved, and I think this is the year we set the record straight. No, that was the key takeaway. I think also worth acknowledging that Giants offense looks like they're going to take a potential next step forward, even though I was a little lukewarm on some of the additions in that skilled position group. It's a lot of redundancy. It does look pretty clear that the synergy between Daboll and Daniel Jones has the potential to carry into this season, and that's going to make for a fun handicap for Sunday Night Football Week 1 as they take on our Cowboys.
Yes, our Cowboys indeed. Darren Waller looks suspiciously like Darren Waller in that offense. Wouldn't be surprised if he leads the team in targets. And the other thing with the Giants, like here are their wide receivers currently on the roster. Cole Beasley, Jalen Hyatt, draft pick, Jameson Crowder, Paris Campbell, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, Wan'Dale Robinson. They have a lot of lottery tickets, and you'd think that at least 2 of those guys are going to be able to hit to complement Waller, and then Saquon's still there, who was actually their most targeted player in the passing game last year, and looked back to being Saquon Barkley. So I think the Giants are an interesting team. They have, I think they have potential on defense. I don't really understand why the defense wasn't better last year. I know they dealt with injuries, but Kayvon Thibodeau is a guy who seems primed to make a pretty big leap. Don't love their secondary, and that would be where it all falls down. But the defensive line could be monstrous. Do you think there's any scope for the Giants to be, 12-5, 13-14 that's competing for the NFC East?
You know what? I don't think so. But it has not anything to do with the offense. For me, the questions exist in the secondary and sort of the misfit between personnel and what Wink Martindale likes to run. I just don't see good enough quality corners to put those guys on islands and expect to keep teams out of the 30s. And I think it's going to be bizarre, but get used to Giants overs. I think we're going to be talking about, shouldn't this total be in the 50s? That kind of is going to be the narrative as we get past the Cowboys game, at least. Cowboys game, I think the total is fair. But when they're up against defenses that can't muster, the world's most fearsome pass rush, this Giants team is going to score. Even though they have 8 wide receivers, 3, and no wide receiver 1 or 2, it still is pretty cool that Daniel Jones is continuing to progress. And if they get nothing else out of this season except for confirmation that they made the right decision signing him, then I think that's a successful season for the Giants, realistically.
Yep, no, I agree. And Jalen Hyatt, who had a massive game on the weekend, he is getting some offensive rookie of the year buzz. He's 25-1, that type of range. I would not be interested. There's just too many guys on the team, and he's got to compete with Waller and Saquon for targets, let alone the 50 wide receivers that they've got on the roster. So no interest in Jalen Hyatt. I think we've talked about it. I think Bijan Robinson is the best value on the board, even though it's not super exciting. After his snap share with the starters in the preseason this past weekend, that was a pretty good indicator that he's a guy who, people are now talking about him as potentially being the best player in fantasy this year, which probably means that you should be pretty short to an offensive rookie of the year if you're being talked about as potentially more statistically productive than Christian McCaffrey and Justin Jefferson. So I think Bijan is clearly the guy. The only long shot that is of interest to me in that market is Dalton Kincaid at 40-1, where I don't think he's going to win. Tight end, it's so difficult to come in immediately and have the type of statistical impact that you need to win this award. But I don't know, there's a lot of buzz about Kincaid, and he's someone with immense upside. Any interest in Kincaid at 40-1?
I'm not concerned about the Bills' offense, but unsure of who ultimately is going to be the number 2 target getter there between Gabe Davis and Kincaid and Knox, and and just this general sense that you get that they want to have a complementary ground game. They want to be able to have a different look where it's not just Josh Allen surely 40 pass attempts in a given game and you can set your clock by it. So it's there's definitely going to be a learning curve to get a sense of what exactly that unit looks like. And so for me, that to me spells he might get 8 targets week 1. He could get 8 targets week 4, but he could have 2 in weeks 2 and 3. Right. And that wouldn't really blow anybody out of the way. They look to be more multiple, at least in concept. And if that's how it plays out, then, you could see some game specific approaches that are, less inclined to give one guy the counting stats he needs to get consideration in this market. But 40-1 is a big number. And it certainly seems like Kincaid's going to get a ton of snaps.
Yeah. I think the thing with betting any Buffalo skill position players, any tight ends, it's the issue where just towards the end of the season, the numbers just always fall off a cliff when it gets colder in Buffalo. And that's why Stephon Diggs is always so up against it to win awards like Offensive Player of the Year, because there's going to just be an inevitable tail off. I do think they have one road game against the Chargers later in the season, which helps in terms of just taking one cold weather game off the schedule. But I just don't think that you're going to see the volume of statistical production for guys like Kincaid and Diggs to be able to actually win these awards when you have, Bijan Robinson plays in a dome and Justin Jefferson plays in a dome, and they don't have to deal with the one game a year in Buffalo where Diggs is going to get, 2 catches for 27 yards because there are wins like there were in the game against the Patriots, or there's the snowball against the Dolphins, or just that kind of stuff just makes it difficult to put up the raw stats that you need to win these awards. Just looping back to the Steelers before we move on to baseball, I think, and this is your baby, Mike Tomlin, Coach of the Year. I do think that is the best Coach of the Year bet on the board. And just that we've talked about it, but the simple way to think through it is, all right, Steelers plus 450 to win the AFC North. Even if you think that is true price 6-1, like what price is Mike Tomlin to win Coach of the Year if the Steelers win what is potentially the best division in football, coming as the 4th favorite in the division? And the good thing is that Mike Tomlin absolutely going to get the credit, absolutely going to get it, because he's never won the award. He is a made man in the NFL, Super Bowl champion, never finished under 500, all that type of stuff. People will be falling over themselves to vote for Mike Tomlin if he wins this division. So I don't know, if he wins the division, wins this division, like he's got to be picked to win Coach of the Year, maybe even shorter. And at that point, even if you think it's 6-1 fair, that makes it 13-1 Coach of the Year. And there's still 20-1, 25-1 out there on Tomlin if you hunt around. What do you think of Kenny Pickett this year? What are your expectations?
I mean, I think he still has tiny hands, which concerns me playing in Pittsburgh. Okay. But he's got the gloves. He's got the gloves though. So, I mean, it's very, very easy to tease out his performance last year statistically and find reasons not to believe that he's going to be able to give you anything better than league average quarterback play this season, right? He was especially good on high leverage downs, which is not, it's not sticky year to year. He was, he was in a system that, specifically did not really help create yards after catch for his receivers and things like that. So, life was hard for Pickett last year, and it's reflected to a degree in how he performed. And I think expecting him to take a step forward, because it does feel like the Canada system is evolving positively. And it does feel like he has tons of chemistry with Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. That there's, if has a healthy campaign, he should, he should be able to be in the conversation with the top 12 quarterbacks in the NFL, in my opinion, because of, I believe in this offensive line. I think he's going to have time to operate. It just entirely boils down to, just some of the pieces staying healthy. Like the wide receiver 1 and 2, you are golden. Your tight end 1, golden. Your running back room, solid. Now, everybody down the line in wide receiver and tight ends, if they got a backfill, now you're getting a little spooked. There's going to be a little bit of discomfort if something happens to Deontay Johnson and he misses a couple weeks, or something happens to George Pickens, because it's a thin room. I think realistically, though, he was a first round pick last year. He's got first round pedigree. I think if he backs up what he showed us in this preseason game with, that quality of play in the regular season, then, this team's good enough to win 12 games, which I think is what it's going to take to win the AFC North. Piggybacking on your point, consensus right now is that the AFC North is the best division in football. And so winning it as the fourth choice is huge. And I think, that's really the entire name of the game here, with Tomlin being the guy.
Yeah, and the key, as we've spoken about many a time with Coach of the Year, is that you need the coach to be able to have credit distinguished from the quarterback. And there will be no issue on that front. No one thinks that Kenny Pickett is the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. And if Tomlin with Pickett wins a division with Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and we'll see what happens with Deshaun Watson. But if he does that with the quarterback who has the least pedigree and is projected to have the worst season of those 4 quarterbacks, then I think that he will be a very good bet to win Coach of the Year. Also, their skill position players, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Frymouth, that's a great top 3 in terms of pass catchers. I don't think Allen Robinson is totally done. I think there might still be something there. I think Darnell Washington might be a bit raw, but maybe there's something there as well. You got Harris and Warren in the backfield. I don't know. There's pieces there where if the offensive line is above average, then Pickett should have everything that he needs to succeed. The other thing as well with Pickett is I think a lot of his, 1 is stats, and then 2 is perception. It is biased by the fact that his career opened last year. Jets, at Bills, Tampa, at Miami, at Philly, New Orleans. That was just a brutal trial by fire for him. And then after that, he was much better. And PFF quite likes him, had him as the 18th best quarterback out of 39. That's pretty good for a rookie. So I don't know. There are reasons to like Kenny Pickett, and I think that he can be good enough for this team if they stay healthy and a few other things go right to potentially take the division.
Yeah, he's one more thing on Kenny. He's squirrely. He's surprisingly mobile. He's got the same knack that Pat Mahomes does, where he's creating something with nothing at times when you feel like it should all go sideways for him. So yeah, I mean, I'm not out here stumping the same as you. I'm not saying he's next coming Pat Mahomes. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, he doesn't really have to be, because this roster is really talented.
He's got the look, Drew. He's got ice water in his veins. Think about how he closed out those games against the Raiders.
He was clutch.
And
incredibly clutch.
National television, just marching them down the field to win both of them. I think there might be something there. All right, before we get to MLB Award futures, one of my favorite topics, there is no better way to start your day than watching one of the biggest stars in baseball in America's biggest city, Shohei Ohtani, and his Angel teammates, which I think will include Mike Trout by this weekend. They take on the New York Mets at Citi Field this Sunday on MLB Leadoff. Catch the action live at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, exclusively on Peacock. All right, MLB Awards going to tackle a couple of the National League markets, and the MVP market provides, I think, the biggest edge that I've seen in one of these markets in a long time. Ronald Acuna is minus 500 to win NL MVP. Freddie Freeman's 6-1. Mookie Betts 11-1, and Matt Olson 25-1. I think Matt Olson is very much on the periphery of the race. He's got to hit 60+ homers to have any chance whatsoever, and I think he still might be in trouble even if he were to do that. I think Mookie Betts is severely is incredible value at the current price of 11-1. He's really snuck up on this race against Acuna, where people have just assumed that Acuna is going to win and haven't really noticed that Mookie Betts, at the time we are recording, which is Monday afternoon, Betts now has the edge in both forms of WAR, Fangraphs WAR, Baseball Reference WAR. Betts has a very narrow lead in OPS. He's got him covered in home runs, RBIs. Every defensive stat prefers Betts, and that's why his WAR has gone past Acuna. Acuna's argument now is basically he hits for better average. He has the stolen bases, which their edge there is significant. Again, I don't think that is probably going to be overvalued by voters. And then he has a team that has the better record. But the Dodgers are only 4 games back of Atlanta now and have won, I think, 13 out of 14. So the other thing, too, is that I don't think anyone's going to have a problem giving MVP to Mookie Betts if he's got the best case. He's one of the all-time greats. He is a former MVP himself. I get that Acuna has the better story. He has the historic power speed coming off the ACL. But I think we've seen across pretty much all sports is that MVP does tend to go to the most deserving candidate, unless you have outliers like Jokic winning 3 in a row when he's never made the finals. I don't think that this is that level of outlier case. I think if Betts, he probably has a slightly higher bar to clear because of how team success and stolen bases are overvalued. But at the same time, I think that if he has the clearly better case, then he's going to win. And he's a lot shorter than 11-1 to have the clearly better case. I think Betts should be plus 200 and is sneaking right up on Acuna. But what do you think?
I mean, your case is extremely solid. And as we know with awards, a lot of it is what have you done for me lately? And Acuna has cooled off to a degree relative to the torrid start he had to this season. And the Braves in general, they don't have much to play for. They should rest these guys. Like if Acuna only plays 15, 20 games in September, won't surprise me. And I don't know that, the Dodgers are really going to push Mookie Betts into service for the entirety of the month of September, but it's pretty important for them to finish top 2 and get a bye and run one of the playoffs. So they have a little bit more to play for than the Braves, and they could absolutely catch the Braves the way they're playing right now. So, I think all told, it's a really, really strong case, and 11-1 is an incredibly good number.
Yeah, and I think on merit, I would say these guys are pick. I just think it's dead. Mookie's got this, I think, a slightly better case on merit right now, but it's dead even to me. And the only reason I'd say that Betts is plus 200 and not closer to pick is that I think Acuna, if it is close, I think Acuna will win, and so that's why I would price Betts slightly longer. But at the same time, Betts is coming home like a steam train at the moment. And the good thing with Betts is that 2 things. One, a lot of his offensive production comes from home runs, which are loud and get noticed and move the market more quickly than anything. And then 2, Acuna has a great story. Betts, if he continues on this path, it is going to get louder and louder. The fact that he is just randomly in his 10th season in Major League Baseball started playing shortstop and second base. He's an outfielder. He just plays second base now.
Amazing.
And is quite good at it, which is insane. And I think will tie into the narrative of how the Dodgers have had all these injuries. People thought that this might be the year that they fall off, including myself. And Betts and Freeman have just dragged this team into competition for the best record in baseball. And Freeman was right there. He's slumping pretty badly at the moment. I think he has now fallen behind both of these guys. I think Freeman should be in the 10-1 range, fair. So not out of it, but behind Acuna and Betts at this point. So, yes, I think Mookie Betts is the best bet on the board. Before we get out of here, National League Cy Young, Zach Gallen is still the favorite at plus 170. Someone who has backed basically everyone in this market outside of Zach Gallen. I can tell you last week while I was watching the Padres play the Diamondbacks, I think there might have been 7 balls the Padres hitters hit off of Zach Gallen that were caught on the warning track. And it was just watching StatCast as it goes, just 870 expected batting average, 750 expected batting average is all caught. Zach Gallen is playing with fire at the moment. He's no good on the road at all. His home starts here has been excellent, to be fair. And I think he is in the mix, but plus 170, couldn't touch that with stolen money. Blake Snell is behind him, plus 225. Spencer Strider, who was dead and buried and really needed to throw 13 scoreless innings to get back in the race, threw 13 scoreless innings as now back in the race. Logan Webb, 6-1. I get it with Logan Webb. If you look at his stats, he's like thereabouts. I just don't think he's going to win. It's just people don't hold him in high enough regard in terms of pedigree, and his stats just aren't quite where they need to be. Justin Steele is 10-1, which I think is about fair. And then the guy who's not even on the screen, but I think is interesting, is Corbin Burns, who's 30-1, and I think is probably the best pitcher out of all of these guys, along with Strider, and is really, if you look at Corbin Burns's stuff with like spin rate and the drop on his cutter, like it's all trending in the right direction, the movement stats on Corbin Burns. And so I think that he is a guy who could come from way back. I think he should be half that price and more like 15-1. But what do you make of this market?
I spent Thursday evening with the most hardcore Dodgers fan friend I have. And so I watched a lot of Corbin Burns.
Oh, yeah. 7 scoreless, 9 Ks.
He was outrageous. He was outrageous. Man. There are a lot of players who are kind of hitting the late season wall right now, and he is not one of those guys. So yeah, I think that at price that's going to be the bet. But I agree with your overall thesis here, which is that the top of this market is incorrectly priced. Zach Gallen at plus 170, considering what we're seeing from him right now, doesn't score.
Yeah, I personally make Gallen closer to plus 400 fair, so certainly in the mix, but I would still have Snell as the slight favorite over Gallen and Strider right there with those guys. Strider is the one guy who I think it's weird because he's kind of coming from further back, but I think he is the guy who kind of has the award in his glove, so to speak, where if he just pitches well the rest of the way, he is the guy that everyone wants to vote for, I think, because he's the most dominant, he's the most flashy with the Ks, he plays for Atlanta, the best team in baseball, he will get some of that intangible bump that Acuna is getting at the moment, and I think people just want an excuse to vote for Strider, and if his ERA is 3.57, they don't have that excuse, but if he can get that down into the 3.2s, then all of a sudden, I think that he becomes the guy. And he certainly, he has the stuff to be able to go on. He's got probably 7 starts left. And if he just pitches like a 2.5 ERA the rest of the way, I think that might be enough for him to win ultimately. But at plus 450, it's not super appetizing. I think the best bet in the market at the moment is Corbin Burns at 30-1. All right. We are done. Don't forget to check out NBCsports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those of you watching on NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please don't forget to rate and subscribe. And also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we will see you tomorrow.